No one said being an entrepreneur is easy. The path to becoming one usually starts with an idea. But is it really enough just to have a great idea? Or what else is needed? Hi and welcome to Amp Up. I'm your host David, and today we'll talk about idea validation, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. And for that matter, we invited Julien De Waal. He is the COO of Doggies in town. Hi Julien, how are you doing?
Hi David, good to be here. Nice to see you.
Thanks a lot for taking the time for this little chat here. And just to give a little bit context for the listeners out there, the reason why we invited you is, yes, of course, you are a COO, you are an entrepreneur and are working in a startup. But actually, you have worked with quite a lot of startups in the past, right? You have, advised over 50 startups and over 100 entrepreneurs on the whole idea validation, product market fit stages. So yeah, thanks again. It's really cool to have you here and to listen to your thoughts on the topic. Yeah, so okay, let's start it. Let's talk about ideas. How do ideas of an entrepreneur actually start taking shape?
So ideas is usually where I think a lot of entrepreneurs start. But what I've seen is when helping entrepreneurs start with coming up with an idea, what I'm seeing is they think that, hey, I've come up with a great idea and it's just going to work. But there's a sort of a bias that entrepreneurs have. I think it's because of passion, it's because of the excitement, but they just start an idea and then they start building a startup from it. But the real way to see if a good idea is a really good idea is when the market has really told you, not when you think it's a great startup idea. So my first startup back in 2009, I came up with an idea. It was pretty much connecting live video streaming, which back in the days, we didn't have Facebook Live. It was very different. We had to take big computer modems, decoders to create a live stream. And I wanted to connect live video stream with webcam shows, so game shows, so that people from around the world could participate in a game show that was going on live in one location, but it was broadcasted online. And I thought this was a really great idea until I built it. I went to the market and nobody cared about it. No one was willing to pay for it and nobody was really interested. They thought it was a great idea, but no one was willing to really become part of it in the sense that they would be willing to pay for it. So that was my biggest lesson in terms of the idea needs to be validated before anything else. Because when you consider why startups fail, the majority of the time is because the startup idea doesn't have enough clients.
And how would you say, do you figure this out? What are good techniques to figure out if idea is just something in my head, just, some imagination, or it actually represents a real challenge in the world that needs to be solved?
Usually you dig deep inside your personal skills, your experience, where you've worked over the years, the network that you have, and you identify, okay, is this a good idea and do I match this idea? Am I able to develop this idea? The best way to check if this is a great idea is to do that validation part. With Doggies in Town, what we did is the initial idea of Doggies in Town was connecting dog owners for dating purposes. Because we thought that we had already built a dating app in Colombia, Enamorados. And we thought, why don't we bring this to Spain, but for dog owners? So what we did is we went offline and online.
Yeah, that's actually very funny how you say it. So why do you thought like in Spain, you had this idea about making them, connect because of did you have any idea that or have you seen any hint about this, that dog owners very often like to connect with each other? Or interesting approach actually?
Yeah, absolutely. The idea, we just thought it was a great idea. So this is a perfect example of, we thought it was a great idea. We had the tools and the experience and the knowledge to take this and bring it to Spain, but for dog owners. And we thought this is a great idea. But what an entrepreneur should really do, and that's what we did, we went offline and online. Offline, we went to canine parks, dog parks, and we started interviewing dog owners. And this is how we start validating without saying, hey, is this a good idea? We just ask them, what is your number one, number two, and number three biggest challenge as a dog owner? And they would give us results. They would give us answers that helped us understand, number one, dating, they didn't care about. And then online, what we did is we built a landing page that cost us $20 to build everything, and with a small marketing campaign, 5 to 10 euros, just to validate. On this landing page, we put everything on there. We put shopping for dog owners, dating for dog owners, discover dog-friendly places, and so many things. And then we tracked every button where people clicked and where they registered and left their email. And what we realized, again, nobody cared and nobody clicked on the dating. So we knew already then dating was not going to be our focus. And what we realized is where everybody clicked first and left their emails, both in the parks, but also online, is where can I bring my dogs? Where are dog-friendly places? This is our biggest frustrations. So this is how an entrepreneur should be working. When they have an idea, they should go talk to the market and they tell them if that's a good idea.
Yeah, so a lot of quantitative, a lot of qualitative testing, right? So the quantitative on the website, where you had this, let's say the few buttons that you analyzed where people clicked, and the qualitative, all the talks with them, right? In the park, actually figuring it
Exactly.
out. Yeah, that's a very nice example actually on it. Actually, I have something similar also that we realized at Amplifyre. I mean, so what we do there is we connect software companies with clients, right? So at the end of the day, we analyze software projects on a daily basis and then match them to the companies where we think they make most sense, right? And we use like a data-driven approach for doing this, right?
Yeah, that's really awesome, and I think that's how every solution should be developed, based on that data-driven approach, and selecting a business to work with, selecting partner to work with should also be data-driven. Actually, everything should be data-driven. Your marketing, your sales, everything. So you're helping a lot of businesses with Amplifyre, in my opinion.
Thanks. That's.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. Like, this is how, MailChimp started, actually, if you think about it, with Ben Chestnut back in the days with they were just a website designing company. And then they realized clients were asking, hey, I want to send emails and customize them to send it out to my clients. Can you help us? And that's when they started realizing, hey, why don't we just focus on a mailing system to help our clients? And that's how start changing and evolving into MailChimp. They found a problem.
Yeah, so we have to test a lot. We have to really make sure that the ideas are the right ones. But let's say I have now this great business idea. I tested it and I think, okay, this is the right way to go. What else comes into the picture here?
So, once you have an idea and you've validated it, it's important to also consider like the market research that you do. But also one of the key things of every startup is timing. For me, timing is one of the key points of should I build this startup or not? An example of this, there's three components to timing that I wanted to mention is one is technology, enabling technology. The other one is economic change and cultural shift. To give an example is enabling technology. So back in the days, we didn't have Bluetooth. So once Bluetooth was created, then you could start enabling specific startups. You could start creating a Bluetooth speaker, Bluetooth headphones. So there was technology that was enabling you to build a startup. And GPS is another example. GPS back in the days didn't exist. Now it does. And now you can have delivery, like Deliveroo or Uber, and you can order your taxi from your location. So the enabling technology is really important. And then we also have economic change. For example, when back in the days, e-batteries, so electric batteries, used to be expensive. They've become cheap. So that has allowed to build specific products these days, or companies such as Tesla. As an example, Tesla would have never existed if the batteries would have been so expensive back in the days. And then connected to still the economic change, there's when not only expensive to cheap, but when you go from cheap to expensive. So today, for example, education in the US is so expensive. You spend perhaps 100K for an education. So this has given rise to startups where you can get an education for much, much cheaper, like Udemy and Coursera and all these platforms, giving them an enormous opportunity. So, and then the last thing is the cultural shift, where back in the days where in the year 2000, 2005, let's say, there was this culture of stranger danger. If you would never share a photo to anybody on the internet, that was just a danger. Then blogs started
Show to the whole
existing.
world, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Really crazy.
It slowly changed from a blog to Facebook to Instagram, and now we're sharing videos, everything. So there's been a real cultural shift. And taking my startup back in the days in 2009, where live streaming was not so common, back in 2009, it was quite expensive. It was complicated to do a live stream. Today, you just click on a button and you go Facebook Live, Instagram Live, TikTok Live, everything. So the change has been enormous in terms of culture here as well. So these three components are really important in the timing. Otherwise, your startup will not succeed.
Yeah, it's great points actually here. Yeah. And can you tell me, did you see right now with Doggies in Town, with your newest venture actually, can you also exemplify it there, like these three different aspects that you're talking about, how you've seen that this is the right point in time right now, that you have the right timing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with Doggies in Town, there is everything there already for enabling the technology. So it just got cheaper, let's say. So if you would have taken 5 years ago, Google Maps, API, those types of tools that we need inside our application were expensive. Booking system, booking technology so that we can book hotels in our app that are dog friendly. This has become more accessible and affordable. So there's an opportunity here in the technology side. Then the economic change, well, that's also connected, that things are getting cheaper, such as external, for example, even artificial intelligence was very expensive. Now it's getting more affordable, even though it's still expensive, to start integrating with your own platform. And then the culture shift. I mean, this is probably the biggest reason why the timing is perfect, because dogs have become, since 3 to 4 years, depending on the country, but in the majority of the Western countries, dogs have become part of the family. It's really part of the family, and there's a lot of potential products, services that are starting to come up because there's a sort of humanization of pets, which is happening. Clothes for your pet, houses for your pets. There's so many things happening right now that it's showing that we're going in the right direction at the right time.
Great. That's really cool to see. Yeah, very nice. So the next point that I would like to talk about is, something that I have seen very often as well with startups is, they started with some idea, they find, okay, what is the right challenge actually that they want to tackle here? They have the right timing, etc., etc. So everything is starting right, well, but then at some point they stagnate. Right? They cannot move forward. They are like in a space in between where they don't know where to go. Is this something that you have also realized?
Yeah, startups are, and then the entrepreneurship life is a roller coaster. So you're going up and down, whether it's day in or week out, it depends. But yeah, the stagnation part happens a lot in the startup life, but it also goes the other way around. So usually it's for different reasons, but the way to try and minimize that is by being aware of the obstacles that are in front of you. And you can only do that once you start, have this continuous validation, understanding of the technology and the market you're talking to. One thing we're doing a lot at Doggies in Town is trying to talk as much as possible with the businesses, the thousands of hotels, restaurants, stores that I have signed up. We try to build this community to communicate with them for them to tell us what is their biggest issues and in using our system and how we can quickly fix it. Because that's usually when it starts stagnating, when users are a bit unhappy with the way a platform is working. So that's when you have to be very, very prepared to talk to your community. We do the same thing with dog owners. So there's a lot of things that, just recently, we had, this is an example, we had a stagnation in the signups of businesses. And we use different tools to measure and understand where users are stopping and what could be the reason. We even use a software called it's called Sentry, and this allows us to technically detect where users are having issues. But we also measure the funnel where people are getting stuck in the first page of the sign up, in this filling in of the profile, or in creating an advertisement. So we have different funnels. So we started detecting people were getting stuck in the map. So they had trouble filling in the map, their address, to indicate where their business was. So we started talking to a lot of businesses, and they told us, yeah, we got stuck here. So this is why we stopped. Within a week, we fixed it, and then we started to see the rise in business signups again. So that's the general journey of startups and adaptation, let's say.
Constant feedback loops, constant testing, right? Again and again.
Yeah, absolutely. And the data as well should be, like you said in the previous part, is the fact that it should be qualitative and quantitative. So yeah, that's super important. And I think there are so many tools out there. So sometimes you can get lost into which tool should I use. It's the same thing with the partners. Which partners should I use? Because you have so many reviews, like, on Trustpilot, Capterra, G2, and all these places. And to be honest, in the last 10 years, I've worked with different providers from around the world. India, Ukraine, Poland, Russia, US, different places. And what you realize is those reviews are great, but they're not always accurate for various reasons. That, at one point, some providers can say, hey, give me a 5-star and I'll help you with this or that, and, as an entrepreneur, you're like, okay.
It happens a lot. Like this is something that people don't realize actually with the reviews, So I think review systems in general are a good idea, but people don't realize how much is going wrong there actually. And I think it's actually, when we come back to the psychology again, it's just a human behavior, right? We trust always most the opinion of other people, right? And this is also why this do you know somebody system is still so much in use, because we just tend to trust other people. This by itself is not bad, but the problem is if you don't realize how false this impression and this data can be actually, if you don't realize this, then you don't realize how bad the decision can be down the road. And when it comes to software projects, most software projects are failing, right? Around 60%, actually, people say, depends on the statistics and how you look at it and what you define as failure, right? So the numbers vary, but no matter how you look at it, this is definitely a high number that fails, right? And so these decisions are important, are really important, yeah.
And there's a lot of, the word here is biased in a way, because it reminds me of this example of taking a startup idea, right? And going to your mom and saying, hey, mom, do you think this is a great idea? And she's not going to tell you no.
Yeah,
your friends are not going to tell you no. Yeah, there's actually a book about this, the mom test, I think it's called. And it shows how you should be validating your idea continuously, because your mom's never going to tell you the truth. That's why I never ask my family, hey, what do you think? And I always ask people who are external, who don't know me, who are very unbiased, let's say. So yeah.
Okay, so then the other thing that always comes up in the discussions about startups, what is important, what do you need to think about when you're building a startup, is team, right? So what are your thoughts on the team in your startups? What do you think is important in figuring it out? What is the right team?
So the team is the most important part of a startup, whether it's the execution and success, but it's also taking it from an investor point of view. An investor will always look at the team as one of the biggest factors, whether this team has the experience, the knowledge, the execution potential, and experience to drive this startup idea. So that's something really important. When I was part of an accelerator, so heading one of the accelerators, what we had to do is come up with teams that were driven by three profiles. So we had a CEO, which was really focused on leadership, that was able to execute, and that is really, focused on the outside of the startup and the inside. So it's able to, the CEO is able to do both. Then we had the CMO. He was the person, or she was the person that was able to grow the startup. And then we had the CTO, the person who was able to construct and build the product, let's say, build the vision. So 3 profiles, and statistically, there's stats on this. The top successful startups always had 2 founders or 3, never less, never more. So those are really key indicators. Also in decision making, by the way, when it comes to, let's say you are 2 founders, co-founders, and you have a decision to make. How are you going to split the 2? So that's also a decision. That's why 3 is always a very powerful number, because you always have a person who can separate a decision lock, let's say. So yeah, that's about the roles. And I think what's really important in a team is once you have the founders, that you create a shareholders agreement. That's always something that a lot of entrepreneurs forget. An agreement that allows them to already have how they're going to work together in place and what roles they play within the company. And yeah, I think one of the key things, one of the challenges as well, is finding your founders, right? Because let's say that I'm an entrepreneur, I have an idea and I validated it. Then you need to go out there and find someone to help you with building this vision, right? So, and growing this vision. So finding founders, that was one of the things that we were seeing was quite difficult. When I was working within this startup accelerator, finding the right founder is a challenging part for various different reasons. So it depends on the project, depends on the industry, depends on the experience. So to give you an example, we would have an idea for fintech company. Well, you need to find someone who has experience in the marketing world of fintech. If you want to find the right CMO, someone who's willing to give up their day job, let's say, to sacrifice it and put it in the startup. And then you also need a CTO, someone who can build it. Doesn't need fintech per se experience, but needs some type of relevant experience. So there's a lot of components in building the team that are super important.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really, really important part. And it's true that it's, you cannot have just one person there, having all the shares and everything in the team. You need to share this with other people, the decision making, the validation process, and everything that comes in between, right? I think this is extremely important, actually, that you find the right people to do this. Well, I can say that I'm extremely happy, really, about the team we have at Amplifyre, where we find, everybody has their own spot where they fit perfectly in and are able to do, what they have to do in order to bring this company to success.
Especially because you guys are international as well. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We have people in almost every continent of the world, and then when you have the meetings, You know, it's so funny because people are in so many different time zones, you know, and it just feels so close because you talk together, and it feels like you would be sitting in the next to each other, but actually you are all in different continents. But it works extremely well if you find out the right people, the right processes, the right structures to do this. Then you know, no issue at all. Yeah. Well, but this is like a totally different topic again, like the whole remote working
environment and culture. Yeah. And one thing which I would recommend to any entrepreneur that is willing to start, remember one thing is make sure that you have the financial and the time buffer. This is so key because so many times entrepreneurs begin with their startup, and it's okay to work part-time in the beginning, but you're going to have to work dedicated at one point. You need this. How many times have I seen startups and entrepreneurs think that they have enough financial buffer for 3 to 6 months, and then they realize it's 7 months down the line and you're still building, you're still trying to get businesses in or clients in, revenue in. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. Even though it should go fast, you're going to find bottlenecks, especially if you don't have that experience as an entrepreneur to bypass some of these challenges because it's the first time you'll encounter them. So that's really important to mention.
Yeah, it always takes more time than you initially plan. I think this is, and even for the big ones. I mean, look at Elon Musk, right? And every time when he says, yeah, this new model will come out then, this new innovation will come out then, it's always later, right? So I think this is something that in the innovation space is really, yeah, with innovation is extremely difficult to really plan the timing accurately because there's so many unknowns, right? That you have to that are just impossible to plan out. But I mean, so this brings me actually to the last topic I wanted to talk about is funding. So you have worked with a lot of startups. You have worked with a lot of these, you know, validation, product market fit environments. So are there some tips that you can give to our listeners and viewers out there? How could they fund, or what should they think about when they're on this funding journey?
Sure. I mean, the first thing they should think about is, do they need an investor? So not everybody needs to be a unicorn or can be a unicorn. Not everybody needs to receive angel or VC funding. That's a decision you need to make based on how fast do you want to grow. You really need angels and VCs as soon as you want to become an international player, that you want to go fast, you want to take a lot of the market over. If you don't, then you don't need angels or VCs. It'll take you longer, but yeah, that's the first thing you should think about. Do you need angels and VCs, or can you make revenue already without them? And can you speed up the process without them? Because receiving funding takes time. It takes time. It's almost a full-time job trying to get funding because you're setting up a lot of meetings, you're building relationships, you're going to get 50 to 100 rejections, hoping to get 1 to 2 or 3 yeses. So this is what we experienced as well. And this, I think all the startups experience this, you know, it takes time to receive funding. And so in terms of tips, the team, again, is 60 to 80% of a decision from an investor. If the team needs to have that experience, there's a lot of importance to the team. Other than that, there's the metrics. Are you able to generate metrics quickly? And metrics, I'm not talking about how much traffic is going to your website. Downloads of an app, it's interesting, but it's not really that relevant to an investor. An investor wants to know how much revenue can you generate, or how much does this startup idea have in terms of potential, and show it, okay, in terms of numbers. In our case, for example, for Doggies in Town, downloads is interesting, and the amount of clients that we have is interesting. But for apps, retention is interesting. So how many people are keeping the app and are active in the app? Same thing for the SaaS. We have a software as a service. So how many businesses are coming back to the software as a service to create advertisements that are visible in the app to dog owners? And last but not least, which is going to be a deciding factor, we're raising a seed round in April of 750,000 euros. And we know that before that time, we need to show revenue. We need to show that the businesses that are using our software as a service, they're willing to pay monthly recurring revenue. And we need to show this in the presentation. So team metrics, numbers is key. I have a list, and it's not too long, but I'll go down the list, okay? So then there's a solid deck. I've seen so many presentations, and this is one of the most important things because it's the first impression, and that is so important. The first impression, stand out from the crowd. Investors see so many designs or so many presentations. So design is really important, or coming at them in different way is really powerful. So, for example, the way we manage this is, if there's an investor we're interested in, we're going to look into their network and see if we can connect with them, but also their network, to slowly get introductions, because referrals is a big chunk of your success rate in getting investment. Referrals is really, really powerful. If you are not that lucky, then your presentation has to be spot on. It needs to be an industry that is really interesting. So for example, the pet industry is really interesting right now, but also the gaming industry, fintech, health tech, AI, anything with AI is very interesting, and machine learning as well. But also the metaverse is also, crypto is also very interesting. So the specific sectors that are very exciting for entrepreneurs right now because they're growing rapidly and there's a huge opportunity. Yeah. So just to say, there's also the part of, you need to have not just an idea, but you need to have at least something on the market as well. So you need to have proven that, you have a product, even if it's a very simple MVP that people have tested, tried, given you feedback on. If you just come with an idea, no investor is going to be interested. So yeah, and ultimately investors are really different per region. So US investor, UK, French, Spanish investor are totally different investors. They look for different things as well. But they also have a different approach of how much they can invest and how much risk they want to take. So yeah, there's a lot more I can tell about funding tips, but those are the essentials, I think, of ideas and tips for entrepreneurs.
Great. Yeah, I think also really getting clear on what do you need. Actually, the first point that you mentioned, right? Is it a business angel? Is it a VC? Is it what is it exactly that I need for the funding of my startup? Is a good point here. And myself, I'm actually also a big fan of bootstrapping, which means which actually correlates also with the points that you mentioned, that to have something in the market, to prove that you have revenue, to have traction, etc. Right? And to get all these parts, well, you have to actually just bootstrap, right? To bring it there. And I think this always gives you also a little bit of a positive edge, right? Because they see, oh wow, they really tried to figure that out first on their own before they went for the big money, let's say. I mean, it's of course not always possible. It really depends on the startup and the situation you are in, and all that. But yeah,
absolutely, and that's what we did at Doggies in Town. We spent 6 to 8 months bootstrapping, and investors we had reached out before, early on, said, well, let's hold on. And then we reached out to them again later, and then we showed them, hey, we're able to bootstrap, generate metrics organically. We're able to grow organically. And then they said, okay, let's hop on. So that shows that you have that mentality of, hey, let's not just waste money, because if we would have received money early on, we would have made totally different decisions than we did now, which was bootstrapping and learning and growing from the users and then getting the investment. So
100%. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for all the inputs, for all the insights on the topic of idea validation, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. And it was great to have you here.
It's been a real pleasure, Dave. Yeah, really nice chatting with you and learning as well about how you guys manage it. And I mean, for me, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with the coming months with Doggies in Town. And it's been really a pleasure sharing our journey a little bit in this podcast.
Great. Thanks a lot. So yeah, for the viewers and listeners out there, see you next time for our next Amp Up podcast.